right. From Africa to America.
There you go.
With CJ here.
Parker's always so mean to you about your hitting skills, but I'm pretty sure you were good enough.
I mean, I hit 400 in high school. I mean, like, it's not that bad.
Parker's standards are just artificially high, I think, is what we've established.
Yes, that's true. Well, CJ, you're a weird Bitcoiner because seemingly you've integrated Bitcoin into every aspect of your life. Your family, your business, your interests outside, the political stuff. Not very many people do that. It's kind of all in, right? And I kind of wanted to start with the business side of things, right? You're a business owner in Fresno. You've done some interesting things with Bitcoin to both, integrate it into your business and motivate your employees. Like, explain to people what you do and kind of how you've integrated Bitcoin into your business in Fresno.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people are here because they're Bitcoiners, right? And I think the big question that we all have is, okay, we see Bitcoin as this esoteric investment case to say, okay, we're going to protect our future or something like that. It's almost in a way, it comes across initially as selfish in the same way that you put your life vest on first if the boat's sinking, right? But thanks to some of the people on the board back here, they provide different business solutions. So for instance, when I first got into Bitcoin, it just like everybody else, you can't shut up about it, right? So I'm at work and I'm everybody's boss because I own a car dealership and we have about 120 employees now. And when the Fold card came out, right, I was like, guys, there's this thing. You can get this debit card and then you get spins and you get free cents.
Spin the wheel. Yeah.
Spin the wheel. It's amazing. It's addictive. So I just came up with this analogy, but this is the way I look at it, right? There's different use cases and needs for Bitcoin. Obviously, we just heard about the problems with corruption in Africa, and a lot of other countries don't have the stability and, like Alex's book, the privilege, right, of being able to operate in different functions. So people looked at Bitcoin, at work, at the car dealership business. We're dealing with relatively happy, relatively wealthy people, privileged people that are business owners, farm owners, doctors, stuff like that. None of these people need investment advice. None of these people really need that. The salespeople do, the technicians do, because they have a direct one-to-one relationship with what they work on and how they get paid. So their time is their money in that regard, right? And as a baseball player, when I retired, my time was no longer valuable to the Angels or the Yankees or any other teams that I would have hoped to play for. So my earnings were zero at that point. So I had to save on what I had, and that savings thing is what drives a lot of people in their investment thesis. So as I got into Bitcoin, like you said, I tried to weave it into all these other things because I was like, wow, there's this money out there that can actually prevent me wasting my time going forward, but also preserve what I've already earned, which I think is a difficult thing to do. Because a lot of us, we have to turn into basically mini hedge fund managers in order to protect our savings.
It's also a famous problem amongst athletes, right?
Yes.
From hero to zero.
Yeah, a lot of athletes, they think it's going to be easy. They're like, oh, I'll live off sponsorships. And like spoiler alert, no one cares about you at all when you retire. There is no Nike contract waiting for you at the end of the day. Your best hope is to go into like maybe earning like $100,000 a year as some sort of a consultant for a Nike or a team or something like that. And this is a myth, but baseball coaches don't get paid very well either.
Yeah.
So like Don Mattingly, who manages the Marlins, gets paid $250,000 a year, and he's like not a Hall of Fame baseball player, but he's an incredibly well-known baseball player. But that's the manager of a major league team. Yeah. So there's not like this millionaire chute that you slide down that a lot of guys expect, and they develop this lifestyle. It's bad. Anyways, sorry. So Fold has onboarded a lot of people, at my store before that. Obviously Price Action onboards a lot of people. Swan has a DCA thing, so we got into that, and I sort of developed what I like to call the orange soda, the orange pill, and the orange sorbet. Okay, so think about it this way. A lot of us have taken the orange pill at this point, which is why we're here. And as we buy more Bitcoin, we're just piling on, right? We already probably have enough Bitcoin. This is like a very unpopular thing to say, I'm sorry. But if you have like a whole Bitcoin, okay, which I'm looking at a lot of clean cut, normal looking people in here, you probably can afford one Bitcoin. So if Bitcoin does hyper price at some point, then we're probably okay. Our thesis is correct, right? But a lot of people are desperate for something, and it's like they're crawling through the desert of investment. They just need water, right? Or in this case, orange soda. You just give them a little drizzle, a little sip, just a little dropper of some sats. And that's what you can do with Fold or DCA. So what we do is we give every employee a small amount of Bitcoin a month. And a lot of them were suspicious at first and stuff like that. But now we've got over 100 Bitcoiners that we've onboarded at work. And it's like actually an employee retention tool. And so now I've actually gotten some of those guys to be whole coiners. These are people that some of these people had never literally never invested in anything before. These are people that are like highly skilled technicians. And they're like, I don't understand money. So I just have a savings account. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? So I'm trying to preserve their quality of life because, effectively we all work together as a team.
Have you seen any, like you said, it's like a retention thing at this point. Mm-hmm. That's not how it started. Did it change? Are they Bitcoiners now? How many of them have made the leap because of you introducing this into their payment plans?
Well, just like a good veteran on a baseball team, I definitely browbeat a lot of people into getting rid of their Doge bags and whatnot. So that was a conversation that we've had to have difficult, come to the office meetings on with some of my guys. I'm like, hey, listen, you start shilling these shit coins, this is not going to go well for you. I can fire you for a cause. Even in California, I can write them up for that. So we will not tolerate that. But I think some of these guys are getting more into it. And as the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks has been the perfect example of the things that we've been warning everybody about. We collectively as Bitcoiners, we've been warning people about the corruption in banks, and it doesn't have to be in a foreign country. It is here. We're seeing that here because at the end of the day, people are corrupted by the power and the grasp of the money, the threat of losing their power, and that's in a way kind of why we got into the Bitcoin Today Coalition.
Awesome. Yeah. So explain the Bitcoin. Yeah. So this is a different aspect of your life, right? Mm-hmm. You have your business in Fresno. You're paying employees, not entirely in Bitcoin, but small amounts of Bitcoin every year. You have this other venture with Amanda and a few others.
Yep.
Bitcoin Today Coalition. What is it?
So Bitcoin Today Coalition, a lot of us met, people met on Clubhouse, Twitter Spaces, things like that over the years, meet at meetups. And we've all been getting really frustrated with things that have been going on. So there was never really a Bitcoin only advocacy group in DC. There's a lot of crypto groups that are talking to these politicians and talking to the lobbyists and stuff like that. And we were very frustrated with that situation. So a couple of us got together and we said, hey, why don't we just do this ourselves? I guess that's how you do it, right? This is America. And we just put on some fancy clothes and filed a 501c4 actually in Wyoming, because the benefit of a C3 versus C4 is tax deductible, but all donations are public. C4, all donations are private. So that's the key for us is that if anybody wants to donate or help us with our efforts, it's all private. So that could be corporate or whatever. You can announce it or you can keep it private. But in the Bitcoin sense, we like the privacy. Mm-hmm. Anyways, so right in the middle of the infrastructure bill, debates and stuff like that. It was Parker, Jimmy, Amanda, myself, and I think one other person, and we were we had this Zoom call scheduled because we were like, we're gonna orange pill Ted Cruz. Yeah. Right. That was the thing. We're like, let's do this. He's super pro Texas, so we can make it a thing. Jimmy, of course, is got his cowboy hat on and the Texas flag behind him, the whole thing. And he was really engaged because of the infrastructure bill, right? Yeah. And obviously, Senator Lummis is very engaged. Everybody knows who she is. It really got us a chance to sort of wedge in there. And we had a small case of success with that. And we said, well, we might as well make this official. So then we started going to DC more often. And we wrote a book together. The concept with the book is, in DC, you can't gift anybody anything. It's very limited. They find ways to do it. You could
give books.
You could sell paintings or whatever, I guess, right? But womp womp. So, but if you're an author, you can give books to offices. So what we did was we wrote this book here in Austin. We did a book sprint with Charlene, who was actually she used to work at the Fed, and then Jimmy, Pete Rizzo from Bitcoin Magazine. I'm going to leave people out. I forget.
My wife.
Yeah, Annalise, who's actually a superhero, which is another story. But we wrote this book in a couple days. We did a book sprint, and now every time we go to DC, we can hand that to people as sort of a calling card. information is the culture in DC. That's the currency. If you're in Miami, it's how good you look in a bikini. If you're in DC, it's how well you can communicate, because those offices and those staffers, there's 50, 60, 80 people in some of those staff offices. So those people are looking for an information ladder to climb so they can be the source or the answer. And so we can be the Google for them or whatever, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't know this, is that, congressmen and senators, they don't know everything about everything. And they can't, and they rely on their staffs a lot, and they rely on their constituents to inform them on what to pay attention to. And a lot of the times, an issue like Bitcoin, it's too big to call your senator or call your congressman and just have a 15-minute conversation and be like, hey, so can you support this in a bill? Mm-hmm. But if you can provide this type of educational material, the stuff that y'all put together, it actually, how else are you supposed to make a difference? They can't know everything about everything. Most of them are lawyers, right? And you have to find a way to break through. This book has had a really big impact on a lot of staffs and members in DC.
Yeah, because the key is there's 50 states, there's 50 governors, there's hundreds of people that are actually voted into office, but then each of them has dozens of people that work for them. So there's a couple thousand people overall that we're trying to make a positive influence on, and that's the core of what we're doing is education. Sure. So we're taking what the let's say the Bitcoin Policy Institute does, and they're publishing studies and stuff, or other mining studies or something like that, and we go in there armed with those facts, and we educate the people to say, hey, listen, Bitcoin's good, Bitcoin mining is good, Bitcoin business are good, Bitcoin banking and stuff is better than crypto, and we sort of separating that. So separating the CBDC, separating the rest of crypto, and just making it like a very strong, linear 45-minute kind of Bitcoin in one lesson like Parker does. And then that gives them more questions, which is the best part, because then we're like, well, read this book and then ask us more questions via email.
Well, you mentioned the CBDC, so you raise money for the 501(c), the Bitcoin Today Coalition. What are you using those dollars to do? It sounds like you have a couple goals in mind on the education side, but the CBDC is actually a big part of what you are trying to educate on right now.
Yeah. So in order to go to...
I should remind people, it's a central bank digital currency, right? The idea of the United States, making up their own centralized cryptocurrency for some reason other than surveillance of everyone.
Right. So obviously there's a lot of people in here that are Bitcoiners because they don't trust the government, right? Which is good. That's a healthy skepticism. The problem is that we have a government. It's like we can't just like Thanos them away, right? So, and even if we did, there'd still be China, there'd still be Russia, there'd still be international problems to handle and take care of. So what we have in our system now is we have 50 states. Each of those states is run by a couple different people. And if we can positively influence those people to look at Bitcoin as an innovation, as a safety net, as a truth, as any of these things for the people out there, then that senator, that congressman can use that as part of their platform. And we know that they're incentivized to get reelected. So if they see a voting block in their state and they're going to grasp onto Bitcoin and use it, then that's something that's positive, I think, long term. It's what we're working with right now. But this will evolve over time to the point that eventually you'll have people that are running, because right now, like, it started with, who are these Bitcoiners? What are they doing? What is Bitcoin? Now it's like you have senators and congressmen that actually know what Bitcoin is, sure, and we're sort of trying to educate the other ones. Phase 3 of this is going to be people actually running for office with Bitcoin as like sort of a platform, which we're going to see pretty soon. And then phase 4 will be like the Bitcoiners just rise up and take over. But we're still a couple years away from that, but I think that's when Parker gets elected, and that's when some of this other
Mayor
stuff
of
happens.
Austin.
Mayor
Yes.
of Austin, yeah, officially.
Well, okay, so let's dive into that just a little bit, right? So right now you're sort of educating candidates and trying to support those candidates with the dollars raised for the Bitcoin Today Coalition.
Well, we can't directly contribute
yeah.
We can't contribute to campaigns, and we can't advocate for candidates, but we can, anybody that's already there, we can pound them with information. We can knock on their door. We can visit them every time we go. So we do spend a lot of time in DC. We rotate through this. Like one of our spends this year was we're going to be there continuously for about 8 weeks. and just going to meetings all the time and starting meetings and throwing happy hours for the staff. Because if we get the staff, they stay in it. People are going into politics, especially as young people, out of George Washington University or Georgetown or any of these Princeton or something like that, because they want to make the world a better place, make the country a better place, right?
Sure.
Regardless of where they are, left or right on the spectrum, up or down, it doesn't matter. So if we get those idealist people and we merge the Bitcoin idealist with the political idealist, then that person is going to take that and see the value of it, and they're going to run it up the flagpole and be the Bitcoin person in the office, which everybody knows. The Bitcoin person in the office is like the vegan person in the office. You can't shut up about it.
CrossFit.
Yeah, it's the CrossFit guy or the barbecue, the Traeger guy or whatever. There's a thing. Yeah.
So who, what's the next step then? Where are y'all on this phase? Who are you targeting? Who are you trying to talk to? Is it really just anyone that will listen? Do y'all have a particular formula that's working?
Well, yeah. So it was really Amanda has some connections because she's done some lobbying before. Donna Riddell, who's one of our directors. She's politically connected through her. She's a professor, at Wharton and stuff like that. So she actually has students that are going into the politics realm and stuff like that. And she teaches on Bitcoin in school. So, you kind of work whatever connections you have, and then eventually those connections sprout new connections, just like the Bitcoin network. And so we're able to sort of go deeper and do deeper dives with people like Warren Davidson, who knows a lot, or Cynthia, who knows a lot. And then the other people like Roger Williams, I think his name is, from Texas.
Yep.
He's an ex-baseball player, car dealer guy, and he's like, I got to meet this guy. So he was totally willing to have conversations about it. And it is a little bit of that brain damage of knocking on every door and seeing who answers. But then you start to kind of form little coalitions within that, and you say like, oh, well, there's a parallel between what Montana's doing, what Wyoming's doing. South Dakota's doing something. Hey, you guys are all regionally kind of interlinked. You're energy producing states. You're into, then you sort of meet the oil and gas people and then the natural resources board. So we look at the committees and say, okay, who's on natural resources? Who's on energy? Who's on fiscal policy?
Yeah.
And if we can get somebody that's on one or two of those things, then that's really a good foot in the door. And then obviously there's people that are just based that you see going on there, like dunking on Yellen yesterday. So now it's like, okay, we got to meet that guy, and there's hundreds of people, right? So we just have to keep going, and that's why we need to be there often. And so the money that we're raising right now is geared towards just having people there full time.
Sure.
But it's like not that expensive to get an Airbnb in DC for 2 months. It's like, I think I spent like 16 or 18 grand on that. So it's not that bad. And then if anybody wants to go and tag along, especially if you're from Texas or one of these other states that is positive, then we need you as residents of those various states to help us, because me as a Californian/Texan, it doesn't really open the door to Kentucky. If someone's from Kentucky, then we get into the Kentucky office easier. If someone's from Tennessee, we get into the Tennessee office easier, if that makes sense. So our recruiting thing is dealing with volunteers that are in the Bitcoin space, especially if you have some sort of, if you're a Lightning developer, or if you're and you don't mind doxing yourself, because you do have to sign in and provide an ID. Sorry, Rockstar. Then that is a very valuable thing for us as an introduction. And being a baseball player, I can kind of bro down with some of the guys a little bit, and that helps. But we've taken meetings with representatives from various people from these companies up here. I'd really like to get more people involved, and that helps us, and then just ideas, just giving us ideas for who we should talk to, because everybody knows somebody knows a congressman or a mayor. And, there's Adams County is banning Bitcoin mining or something in Colorado. So I'm trying to spin up some effort on that. There's a lot of stuff to do. There's so much work to do, and it's going to take years to do it.
Yeah. A slight editorial note here. Many of you might wonder, why do we need another, advocacy group? There's lots of, DC and local advocacy groups out there. If it doesn't have Bitcoin in the name, it's probably not advocating for what you want. A lot of these people do a lot of good work. I don't want to, slander them too much, but there are a lot of problems when they are general crypto groups and trying to advocate for what we want as Bitcoiners.
They have to defend all the cryptocurrencies because that's where they're getting funded from. But it's pretty much just us and the Bitcoin Policy Institute that are just Bitcoin only in that regard. Yeah,
and that affinity scam is rough. I mean, if they're equating Bitcoin with XRP in DC, we're not getting what we want.
Right.
And in fact, it can be really damaging. You mentioned the infrastructure bill. just so everyone knows, a $1 trillion bill got held up for 2 weeks over definitions around mining and what a money transmitter was in nodes. Like, people are paying attention. We held up a $1 trillion or $1.6 trillion bill.
And we were completely disorganized at this point.
Yes.
We weren't even really mobilized in that regard. It
Yeah.
was really just Amanda and some of the other people were like pounding the phones and figuring out who to talk to in different states so that we could try to open their eyes a little bit. But then, we're seeing the fruits of that labor. We got a chance to review the Lummis-Gillibrand bill when it was just the Lummis bill in November of I guess 2 years ago now almost,
Yeah,
right?
2 years ago.
So that's been in the works for a while. And I think people that get it, they have a chance to, really make a difference. And, if you're the senator that's known as Bitcoin lady or Bitcoin dude or whatever, that might be weird in some circles, but yeah, you've got to
It works in Wyoming.
It works in Wyoming. You got to make your star somewhere, I guess. And everybody that's a politician has a sort of ambition to do that. So I think the phase is like, just getting in front of as many people as possible. And if we only do one thing, which is prevent them from making stupid laws, that's a small victory. And that's like, and everybody has to be willing to do that, or willing to be okay with that. And whatever effort it takes to do that, because Bitcoin's going to Bitcoin, then the network's going to grow, and the users are going to grow. The use cases continue to grow. Like the developers meeting last night just blew my mind. But
do no harm is a huge win.
Yeah, exactly. And realistically, because all of us have something else to do, we're not like full-time lobbyists, and I think that's crucial. I run a successful car dealership. Like, I don't need any money from any Bitcoiners or anything like that. I have a mining company that's like, kind of doing okay, not really that great, but like, maybe a little bit better this week. And the thing is, for me, it's really because I believe in Bitcoin. I care, and it does when you really believe in something and you absorb it, then it does permeate your limbs and your organs and everything, and you can't not think about it. It's always there.
So hold that thought as we transition out of Bitcoin Today Coalition into like personal life, mining and everything. I got the orange soda and the orange pill. What's the sorbet?
So the sorbet is sort of like, it's dessert, right? It's extra calories just for fun.
Okay.
It's when you feel good about how much Bitcoin you have, but you'd feel a little bit better if you had a little bit more. That's, I think, where we're at. But this is the way you have to think about it. Okay, so the Bitcoin, as we all accumulate Bitcoin, it is going to be redistributed to other people in the future. The more valuable the Bitcoin becomes, then people start to spend it, which is normal. And that's what creates the sort of circular economy of, creators and employees and the valuing things. Because like, if somebody came to me and said, okay, I'm only going to come work for you if you pay me in Bitcoin, like, you got to think about that a little bit, right? Because then you're thinking about how valuable is this person to me, and then what am I equating that value to in Bitcoin terms, and then future value based on Bitcoin value. But it also makes it more honest, right? The whole like value for value concept, where it's like, if I like Marty's podcast, I'm going to listen to it, and if I'm going to zap him or something, I just sign up for Nostr. I'm learning all the terms.
Don't tell Parker.
I'm busy having kids. So it's like, that's a thing, as you are as well. Making more Bitcoiners in a low time preference sense. But yeah, if that's really where we're at. So if someone wants to, if I have to buy a car off somebody in Bitcoin, I have to think, oh man, do I really want to part with this? And then how easily can I replace it? So it is a little bit more complicated, but I think it's shifting towards that, and we're seeing more people wanting to do business in Bitcoin, regardless of the business you're in. So whatever business you're in, if you set up a BTC Pay server or whatever to receive Bitcoin as payment for online commerce, it changes your outlook on your business. And then you start to think, okay, what's my business valued, in Bitcoin terms or something like that. And then you start planning, for long-term stuff. But that's all a luxury, and like sorbet, right? So like I said, the soda is like to save you from death. Like, you need a little bit of something because you need to vacate, your country or something like that because of bad things that are happening. That's like, life sustaining. Then there's the orange pill, which is like where you really absorb the whole concept of Bitcoin, and you sort of like see the next level of what it can do. And then there's sorbet, which is where you're just kind of gluttonous. And I think that's where some people get to, and then that's where they get caught in a little bit of a doom loop. But that's where you need to sort of sidestep that and then go back to advocacy, education, and the sort of the original successful Roman Republic, which was like work your way up the ladder. If you're successful, then you sort of sideways into some sort of mentorship, leadership thing. And I think that's actually a good path forward that a lot of people talk about in Bitcoin. Starting the citadels and all this other type of stuff, opting out.
Yeah, we talk about, the class of 2015 teaching the class of 2017, and the class of 2017, making sure that the 2020ers don't jump off a building when it goes down 70%.
Yeah. But I think like in that the soda pill sorbet thing, sort of, you could say soda sandwich sorbet, like a meal course, like you're feeding someone the Bitcoin. But I think it's a good visual analogy, because then you're thinking of it in terms of, like a practical use. And what we really need in order to explain Bitcoin the best is simplifying it in terms that make sense in a everyday world. So this is my last thing. I know we're running out of time, but if you have, imagine like Copernicus and Galileo explained the heliocentric orbit like in the 1400s and 1500s, and it took like Isaac Newton in the 1600s getting doinked in the head by an apple tree, by an apple to explain gravity. People understood at some point that like there's spatial bodies revolving around, but they didn't have a concept for gravity. He's like, hey, oh man, that's gravity. Now I get it. And I think because of the internet age, we can skip to that part, and that's what anybody that knows Bitcoin well enough needs to think about it in those terms of how do you explain it to somebody like an apple falling out of a tree, and then that certainty and that simplicity is what people can grasp onto, and that's what our mission is.
Awesome. Well, I'm getting the signal that we're running out of time here. Definitely if you're in the market for a Porsche, go to Fresno, California.
Yeah, Porsche, Audi, BMW. We can sell it to you. We'll buy your car in Sats, maybe even, and we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and if you want to help educate the lawmakers in your state, national lawmaker, look into the Bitcoin Today Coalition.
.org.
.org.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.